And I really hope it sparks thinking and inspires you. So please engage in the conversation, add your comments on the chat, post questions. We'll have space for questions in the room following the talks. So, this is kind of bigger than just us, right? So encouraging you to lean in. Yeah, it is #TechTalk. There you go. Yeah, just want to encourage you to take a key learning away from tonight. There's always something to learn. And it's a real privilege to be able to host the speakers that we get in Tech Talk. And I think just part of that is take something from that and use it to shape the world. Hopefully you're a little bit different, think a little bit different, act a little bit different when you leave one of these talks. We are filming, and so this is the sort of track here, so if you could be mindful of that. This is both for our online audience, and we will be filming the talks, which we'll post on our YouTube channel afterwards, once they're edited and carved up by our amazing team of volunteers. Jesse, can you give us a wave at the back there? He's suddenly having an awkward moment, like, whoa, attention is suddenly on me. But he's awesome. And Ben and various others are all supporting us. Yeah, keen to find out who's actually in the room and sort of what brought you along tonight. So I wonder if I could get you to quickly take a look around and make eye contact with someone you don't know, all right, or know the least, and go and say hi and share with them what brought you along tonight. Go. We'll give you a minute for that. You
Well, it's an interesting I just created it's not really investigating.
Awesome, loving the energy in the room. Okay, I'm going to get you to take your seats again. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Let's put those amazing conversations on pause. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. Yes. Looking very fine today.
Yours also takes a lot of care.
Yes, yeah. I'll share my secrets with you later. Awesome. All right, folks. Let's bring it back in again. Thank you. Excellent. So, thanks, team. Take a seat. Love that energy. Loving that energy some more. Can I say that again? Yeah, grab a seat. We've got a full night tonight. Can I please encourage you to keep that conversation going in the breaks? All right? Let's keep getting to know each other. Let's keep pulling our community together. I don't think we get enough opportunities, really. It's a privilege to be in person, right? Darsel and I were just talking about that just now. That it's a real pleasure to be able to host people in person. So let's take that opportunity. So yeah, very keen to hear maybe one or two from the floor. What did you hear right now? Why are people coming? Why have people come along? What have you heard so far?
Passion for tech.
Passion for tech. Can I get a hell yeah for that? Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else?
Interest in startup.
Interest in startup, yeah.
Hot topic at the moment.
Hot topic, yes, and probably going to get hotter tonight. Outstanding. Cool. So look, we've got a full program in store for tonight. We're going to hear from 3 amazing speakers. When they share, they're going to give you glimpses of the map that are quite far apart, and that's, on purpose. We want to explore the topic quite broadly, and then we'll take a break, sort of 15-minute break or so, refreshments, etc. And then we'll reconvene afterwards for a panel discussion. We'll just have everyone, the 3 speakers, back up in the front here, and I'll ask them some curly questions to get started. All right, but then I'll also be relying on you wonderful people to keep that conversation alive with a few of your own questions and comments, so keep that in mind. And then we'll be wrapping up by about 8:30, as is the norm. Now, traditionally we do have lots of food and beverage left over, so please help us out by finishing it up. So you're welcome to stick around a little bit afterwards and carry on the conversation. Sweet. So that's a bit of how it's going to work tonight. Who have we actually got in the room? So if you look around, basically you've got 3 types of people here. You've got organization leaders looking to attract tech talent. You've got university students, people at the beginning of their tech careers, hunting for opportunities, all right? And it's been so great to see some of them find their way out of events like ours. We've also got educators and supporters of our sector that are looking to, kind of make it easier for the right people to find the right places to shape what happens next. So we're going to get ready to hear from our speakers. The way it's going to work is we give each one about 10 minutes to kind of get through and share some cool ideas, share their story. We'll open it to the floor for a bit of Q&A, so we'll ask you to hold your questions back until the break. We'll let you know. And then, we'll take 1 or 2 questions from the floor. We might also pull one in from our online audience. So that's a big call out to our online audience. Please pop them in the chat. And our main man, Daniel, I'm looking around, kind of making eye contact. There he is, he's waving. So Daniel is going to be acting on behalf of them. Is that right? Sweet. Excellent. Thank you. So it's all coming together. Excellent. Are we ready for kickoff? Eh? Enough for the preliminaries, yes. You can clap hands if you want to, Ben. Yes, thank you. That's to all of you, yeah. Now, if you hear something that really resonates with you, something that we've been building up over time, is a nice little practice, is clicking. So if something that really kind of connects for you and you think, actually, wow, that's I agree with that, but I don't want to stand up and give a massive ovation, a standing ovation, a big clappy hands, I can just click. And that demonstrates a bit of support. Do you guys want to try that? You got it. So every time you hear a speaker hit something that you think, wow, that was super useful and that changed my paradigm, then give them a little clicky click, all right? Because it's not actually that easy to speak publicly. And sometimes we need a bit of feedback, right? And so please, can I ask you to be the friendliest audience in Auckland tonight? Awesome. So look, our first speaker tonight, it's in reverse order by the look of things, is Rob Purdy. So Rob Purdy is an experienced IT professional. He has over 25 years of 25 years in systems integration and technology. He has established a formidable network of customers, staff, and suppliers in the IT sector, and currently executive leader with Fujitsu, with a strong services background in delivering outcomes in large, complex, multidisciplined teams. And yeah, he's going to be our first sharer. Can you please put your hands together for Rob? Awesome. Here's the clicker.
Thank you. Why did you mark up right now?
Yeah, would you like a mic?
Good luck.
I think it's good for our online audience. It's quite
okay.
good, yeah.
All good. Hey, kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, talofa, konnichiwa, and good evening. Well, it's lovely to be here. As mentioned, I'm Rob Purdy. I'm the country manager for Fujitsu New Zealand. Who thinks I work for a heat pump company? Hands up. Always one in the room. No, it's the other company. That's Fujitsu General. I work for Fujitsu New Zealand Limited. As mentioned, I've been in the IT sector for 25 years. I started as a WAN engineer and as a BSc at Auckland University. One of the first days that I was in my career, I managed to crash a whole lot of stuff. really interesting. Had to roll out to an Auckland library and go and fix it. But have sort of made my way through different organisations and various engineering roles and leadership roles, and had the privilege of doing a few startups inside organisations as well as my own. I'm also an investor in startups, so I have an understanding of what they go through and various things. So hopefully I can impart some of those things tonight. That's really what I'm going to talk about is, as a startup, or if you're thinking about doing a startup, what are the things that you need to think about? Hopefully that's going to help you there. And also, if you're inside a global organisation like I am at the moment, how would they actually work in terms of a startup inside a global organisation? Because that also happens too. Yeah, so I've done a lot, I guess, in the IT sector space. The first, I'm going to skip to that one. The first thing I'd ask, if you're thinking about doing a startup, is what is your goal? Now, who's seen Silicon Valley, the TV show? Oh, go and watch it, it's hilarious. It's about a startup in Silicon Valley, it's classic. Their tagline, and I'm going to quote it really poorly, but basically was to disrupt and change the world through
right person in the right place at the right time?
What a great question.
Something that you might be really proud of.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, I think I sort of mentioned it before, that sort of business that I took basically to 250K, and it's now a $100 million business. And I think the thing that because I sort of put that dice up at the start, which I only flicked through, I apologise, but as a leader or somebody who's trying to run a company or run a startup, it's important that you learn from where you fail. And I sort of mentioned at the start, technology, I've failed a couple of times, and particularly in the technology engineering space, but knowing where your weaknesses are and then augmenting them with people around you to help. And so, that I say I started that thing and it ended up being that. It wasn't me, ended up being a team of people that sort of supported me through that period. And the period was basically 2010 to 2015. So it took 5 years to get to that revenue level, but again, it's just finding the right people to bounce ideas off, test it with customers. Yeah, that's the important stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Bob.
One more?
Okay, one last one here.
If you find yourself, based on your experience, 1 year's experience, even surely something happen like this, that you find yourself in a situation that you immediately face with the immediate crisis, like pandemic like this.
Mm-hmm.
Surely not like this happening before, but when you find with these situations, what's your first reaction?
Is my family going to be okay? Yeah, the people that are around me helping me, because particularly in a company that I exist in at the moment, 180,000 employees, there's 450 people in New Zealand. Are the people going to be okay? Because in my sector, in the area that I work in, it's an IT services, not a heat pump company, and so the reality is that we employ people. We wrap a lot of technology and smarts around them, but we rely on the people to do their job every day, and if they can't do their job for a crisis or whatever, and I've been in situations, and again Jatinder will attest to this, where I've had to work days straight on problems or outages or things like that. My first thought was always, I can see this is going to be a problem for a period of time. If it is, and whether that be a 48-hour or a week-long period or a 2-year period, how are we going to look after the people? Because, even in a small startup, when you've got people around you helping you write the code or create the product or engineer the product, you're reliant on those people to function. And if they disappear, you end up losing a whole lot of IP with it too. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Can we get another round of applause?
Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent. So far, so good?
Yep.
Useful?
Yep.
Yes. Next up tonight, we have the amazing Darsel Keen. Oh gosh, I've got a feedback loop. Oh, it's because of the mic. Okay. Speaker. Sure, I stand in a different spot. How's that? Oh, it's a bit weird, eh? Is it that one maybe? It must be that one. Maybe mute it. Oh. But you're going to come out in a second. Come out wherever you are. Awesome. So Darsel Keen is the director of the University of Auckland Centre of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And is a subject matter expert in entrepreneurship education. Is that working? Was it one of the others, maybe? Yeah. Is that one?
Yeah.
It's on mute. That's on mute. Yeah. I think it is on mute. Weird. All right. I think it might just be catching the speakers. So bear with me. So yes, Darsel, director of the Innovation Entrepreneurship Centre. And her current PhD topic, this is curious, PhDs, man, relates to the measurement of the entrepreneurial mindset. How do you measure that? Fascinating. So Darsel has led the CIE, the Centre for Innovation and that's a real mouthful, hence why it's acronymed, in developing programs that have made a substantial impact on participants. What kind of programs, we might wonder? Velocity, Right, a few others. Hands up who's actually heard of or participated in any of these programs? Yeah, excellent, represent. And those of you who haven't, find out more. We're in the space for it. So thank you. Startup Studio, there's a lot of propaganda. It's very, very stimulating. So look, not only that, but CIE, their results have, the Centre of Innovation and Entrepreneurship has received international acclaim, including being named in 2021 Newsweek the best maker schools and multiple awards, including, can I list them? We shall list the accolades. Let them be heard. 2021 Entrepreneurship Education Excellence Award, and that's by the International Council of Small Business, 2021 Outstanding Student Engagement and Leadership, Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centres, and of course the 2020 Entrepreneurial University of the Year Accreditation Council for the Entrepreneurial and Engaged Universities. Bang. Can we get a massive round of applause for Darsel? The floor is yours. I'm going to mute now.
Thank you. It's always a bit of a juggle, so I'm going to put this in my pocket. I do need to pull it out because there is something I am going to need to read. Is this all right, the mic? Yeah. Okay, so kia ora koutou e nau mai haere mai to Kura Matahuna. And Kura Matahuna is the Māori name that was gifted to the Unleashed space when we opened it in 2017. And what that means is it's the School of Hidden Potential, because what we do in the Unleashed space to the people who participate in our programs is we prepare them to challenge the status quo in an unknown future. So up here on the screen, I've got a new thing I've started doing, so if it's a little bit awkward, please forgive me. But ko wai tēnei e mihi atu nei, which loosely translates as who am I to stand before you to talk about this topic. So first of all, up there on the screen, I am, it's my husband Miles, and we've got 3 small children, Neve, Zoe and Riley, and I also think deeply about what the future really means for them. Over in the far corner you've got me with my mother and father. My father was an entrepreneur, never employed in the traditional sense in my whole life. My mother was an educator who at 63 years old took her off to do the Mind Labs technology and education course, and she spent her whole life educating herself, was the first one to bring BYOD into the classroom in the school that she was. And so I grew up, I guess, in this environment of education and entrepreneurship, which doesn't really, surprising I end up in environments such as this. I studied here at the University of Auckland, and while I was involved, I got really involved in the Spark program, which is now known as Velocity. So as a student, my interest in entrepreneurship was really stimulated by the Spark program, which is now Velocity. While I was studying, and then when I graduated, I worked for the Ice House, for the uni services, doing some work with various technology companies and those who are looking to spin out. And that led me to a role at Everidge IP doing some intellectual property commercialisation and strategy work. I wasn't very happy as a consultant because I like doing things and executing, and I found it a bit frustrating. And so I left and then came back to the university because we were then, and this is back in 2009, looking to set up the Centre for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And I haven't left, and the main reason I haven't left is because the university has continued to strategically invest in this area. So that's meant, for me personally, my roles have continued to grow and develop. So I started as Special Project Manager and now the Director. And I've had the wonderful pleasure of being involved in awesome projects such as setting up this, and the work is really rewarding. However, because I'm in a university environment and we were doing an increasing number of programs, I became increasingly curious about how do we know what we're doing is actually making a difference. So if entrepreneurship education is not about startups, and I'll be talking about that tonight, then how do we actually know that what we're doing is making a difference to participants? And in entrepreneurship education, we talk a lot about entrepreneurial mindset, but it's one of these terms that no one really knows what it is. What are the various elements of it, and if you can figure that out, then how do you measure it? And so that's what my PhD is focusing on. So as I said tonight, I'm really here to say that entrepreneurship education is not about startups. I should probably put in brackets only, but that's not our focus here at the Centre for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I'm not going to go into our accolades because they've already been put up. But our role here is very, very simple. Our role at the university, in the local Auckland regional ecosystem and the national one, is to develop a pipeline of innovative and entrepreneurial talent. So we focus on creating a new breed of graduates, but also scientists who have an entrepreneurial mindset and capability and are going to make transformational change in the country. And so why is this important? If you think about the 21st century, and we've got a whole lot of challenges and opportunities coming our way. So there's all the issues which are outlined in the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we've got them up there. Over in the Unleashed space, we use them as the ideation space in a lot of our programs. I've got post-COVID, maybe slightly optimistic, but what does a post-COVID living with COVID work look like? We've got New Zealand's ongoing productivity paradox that actually needs solving. You know, how is we as a country going to create more wealth for our people, which will lead to a whole lot of societal outcomes? And then we've got the fourth industrial revolution. And part of the problem with the narrative around the fourth industrial revolution is it feels like robots are going to come and take our jobs, and then what are we going to do? And society's going to break down. And part of our role, and this is the big role of the makerspace, and we've got a new tech lab we've just opened in the business school called Tayebi, is to really empower people to understand the power of technologies, because if you get to play with something and learn about it, then you're not scared of it. But ultimately, we believe in our work here at the Centre for Innovation and Entrepreneurship that not everyone will become an entrepreneur, but you will need to think about one. And another way we frame it up, which is at the bottom of the spanner here, is that entrepreneurship is a mindset, not an activity. So we've got up here one construct of an entrepreneurial mindset. And so if you think about this term and what it actually means, you've got things such as dealing with ambiguity, taking risks, working in teams, leadership, learning from failure, resilience, communication. And what we do in all of our programs, which are extremely experiential, is we make people do things so they experience and learn. So if you think about a learning cycle in terms of experiencing something, having some time to reflect and then actually put it into practice, that's what we do in all of our programs around these attributes. In our programs, we provide inspiration, so we have a whole lot of guest speakers come in, they share their stories. These will be entrepreneurs from a diverse type of industries and backgrounds. We have education, obviously, so we teach the Lean Startup as well as designed thinking and various other processes and models. Around our program is a whole lot of networks. We have about 200 volunteers each year who are judges, mentors and speakers who come in. And so if you do our programs, and Arash will testament to this, you actually get connected and plugged into the ecosystem, which is really important for young people. And we've got funding, so in our programs, and we provide small amounts of funding to people. This is largely to give them the space to focus on the idea for a short while. So Sayura is also in the room, who's just gone through one of our programs where we give $10,000 to people, and the purpose of that is just to give them the space to develop it further, because if you're a student, you don't have a lot of spare cash. There's the physical space, which is both co-working and prototyping ability, technical capability. I've got an amazing team of technologists who can support people to prototype and develop the MVP. And then prestige. Velocity in particular has been around for a long time, about 20 years, and it means something in the local ecosystem. Investors know about it. We had a showcase last night and investors come along because they know while they're not going to get the next deal there today, they know that the talent and the future ideas are coming out of here. So our program journey, we're at the very, very, very early stage, and this is a whole lot of I guess, contextualising that we often have to do. So our role here at the university is to inspire people and raise their awareness around entrepreneurship. Surprisingly, for a country of SMEs, students don't come to the University of Auckland aspiring to be entrepreneurs, and we've actually done surveys and have data around this, and we're quite low compared to the rest of the world. And so part of our role is to, and we do this largely through comms and speaker series events, is to really raise the awareness of what innovation and entrepreneurship looks like in different contexts and means for different disciplines. So if you're a law student or an art student or medical and health science, why might you do innovation and entrepreneurship, and what might it mean for you? We then have a whole lot of learning about innovation and entrepreneurship, so very early stage programs. You come in because you're curious, you want to know about it, and then we support you really to give it a go and see what it might mean. And then we do work around venture ignition and activation. And so for those of the people who are serious or just want to play further and develop their skills, then we have various programs that can support them. And right at the top, we have a pre-seed incubator, which the aim of that is to get people to a point that they're ready to take on some pre-seed proof of concept fund. Arash went through it 4 years ago. Sarah's just been through it tonight, and I don't think there's anyone else in the room, but it's that's as far as we go. And then from there they go out into the ecosystem. So one of the teams who's just finished their offer is about to enter into the Sprout agri-tech ecosystem. And so that's where I come back to our role as filling the pipeline. We're not about saying we've got the next investable idea, but we are about saying this is a place where entrepreneurial talent comes from. So these are examples of some of the founders and companies who have come from us. You've got Kame, so this was founded by Henji, Jordan and Eliv. They are they're just an amazing group of founders, named by Times Magazine as one of the top 100 influential companies in the world. They went through our program in 2012. They are one of the rare teams, and Arash is another one, who actually go through our programs and then just go and execute. But, you're talking about the 5%, but they're remarkable, doing great things in the edtech space internationally. You've got Nuka, founded by Kiri Dow, who's on staff here in the business school. She paired up with a professor in engineering to try and take the flavour of hangi and apply it to different food products. And she's driven by this passion to benefit her whenua and iwi landowners. And so, and then you've also got Grego Grady, who Elementary has raised $60 million in capital. They're touted to be the next Fisher and Paykel Health Dare, and they've just got FDA approval for their medical device. And the reason these three are put up is very intentional, because if you think about the diversity of a university and the work that we do, which is supporting undergrads from all faculties, Eliv is from arts, the other two are from engine, all the way to supporting professors in medical, then what you end up with is this wonderful array of ventures and talent that are really going to change the world in different ways. And then we're also very proud of where our alumni go in terms of people and the impact they make in big organisations. So you've got Rahul, he went through our programs, he trained as a doctor, and he's now down in Wellington working in one of the hospitals, but he addresses his work from an entrepreneurial mindset perspective. So he's always looking to identify the problem and understand the best solution to deal with it. So he ends up getting involved in a whole lot of community healthcare initiatives to really make sure people don't end up in hospital. And then you've got Jane. Jane studied law and commerce here at Auckland, went to work for one of the big law firms. I love this story. And she got asked, because she was in litigation, to do a job which apparently takes junior lawyers about a week to do. She knew that there was a better way, asked a friend to code a solution, got done in a day and a half, 2 days, and then she had to explain to her partner why she'd done it so quickly. And so she then got pulled into this legal tech environment and is now VP of operations of a legal firm. And so although I started very contentiously by saying entrepreneurship education is not only about startups, the thing is, if you invest in young people in particular at the university level, to have this mindset and capability and believe that they can be entrepreneurs, what you often see, and this is evidence around the world, is about 5-6 years after graduation, so when they're in their late 20s, they go, I think it's time to give it a go. And there's a few reasons for that. One, they have a bit of capital behind them, they've got some working experience, and they actually have been exposed to industry problems, you know, so students are in an environment when they're exposed to student problems in a student world, whereas once you enter out into the world, you're exposed to a whole lot of different problem spaces and you can come up with solutions. So we do have reasonably impressive venture statistics. We've ignited more than 276 ventures, created over 3,000 jobs, raised 1.36 billion in capital, and they're in 182 countries around the world. And so I think this is really proof that if you invest in entrepreneurship education, you can slowly start transforming a university in a region and a country. And that's it from me. We 2003, Spark started. 4 years too early. Yeah.
How many students have you impacted? I know that there were 3,250 jobs. How many students have you impacted and how many are going through every year?
Yeah, so for the past 5 years, we've had about 4,000 students per year. And one of our challenges and the big opportunity we're working on at the moment is our work is largely in the co-curricular. And what that means is students and staff participate in our programs on top of curriculum and on top of working environments. And a few years ago, the Hines family, which is a wonderful, successful New Zealand business, gave us a gift to embed innovation and entrepreneurship in the curricula across the university, in the language and context that makes sense in that discipline. So we've got a wonderful person, Peter Ricord, who's an entrepreneurial teaching fellow, and he's working with 7 out of the 8 faculties to do exactly that. So innovation and entrepreneurship is delivered in the curricula, and then because of the work that he's doing and the commitment the university's got to this area, the new graduate profiles now got innovation and entrepreneurship in it. So for those of you not in a university, what that means is our graduates are expected to be developed to have the elements in the graduate profile, of which innovation and entrepreneurial thinking is one. And so our big focus at the moment, well, one of them, we've got 5 key focus areas for the next few years, is around getting innovation and entrepreneurship into the curricula so most students get it, because you know if they get it in the curricula, their awareness and inspiration is there, they've got access to the basics, and then so your co-curricular also starts flowing because they go, actually, I can do this. So we're hoping that that number just skyrockets over the next few years, but currently it's about 4,000 students a year.
I'm just trying to read out, what's Cami?
Cami's a edtech company, so they, what do? They PDF annotation's bad thing. They help teachers deliver Google Classroom in a real simple way. Yeah, and so the pandemic was rather beneficial for them because everyone had to switch their learning online, and they had the solution that solved a huge international problem. They won Deloitte Fast 50, was it last year? It was something like 1,100% in revenue growth. Yeah, like they literally just skyrocketed. The 3 founders are under 30, but the other co-founder is their mentor that they met through the program, who was their first investor. So yeah, it's a very cool story.
So is it mainly then academia that use it? I haven't.
No, school teachers, primary school teachers is the primary market currently, and also and high school teachers, yeah.
Awesome. Big round of applause for Darsel. Thank you. I think I'll stick to the mic today. Now you're in for trouble. Thank you so much, and thank you. So yes, next up tonight we have the bionic man, I'm just kidding, Arash Tayebi, is co-founder and CEO of Kara Technologies. We're going to hear a bit about that tonight, I hope. So he received his PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Auckland, but after losing hearing in one ear in 2017, Arash became interested in the deaf community and the problems that they deal with. This experience was the impetus to form Kara Technologies. Arash Arash is a problem solver with a passion for, or passion to provide scalable solutions for the challenges of the modern world. He received the University of Auckland Blue Award for Innovation in 2019 and was recognized as one of the university's 40 under 40 alumni in the Disruptors and Innovators category. Arash is also a fellow of the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. Ladies and gents, can you please put your hands together for Arash? There we go. Do you need a stool, like a bar stool to sit on? Yeah, I've got one right over here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There you go, buddy.
Kia ora. Thank you. My name is Arash. I am the co-founder of Kara Technology. And sorry for me sitting here. I am not rude. I'm very old. Just before I start, how many of you wants to have their own company? Oh, that's cool. How many of you already have an idea for the company? Okay, why you want to have a company? Well, that's cool. How about you? Why you want to start your own company?
I have always been my own company, and I started beginning after COVID.
Why?
Normally people say that, okay, COVID ruined everything, but COVID made me.
Oh, good man. All right, cool. So let me tell you about my story. Out of all the symbols that humans are created, this is my favorite one because that's what I believe that distinguishes us from other animals. So technically what we're doing as an entrepreneur mindset is we solve a problem. And it's the main things that I really want to encourage everyone is think about what problem I'm solving. When you're solving a problem means you're creating a value. Then it means that the people will pay to have that value. So that's very, very crucial. So let me tell you about the question I tried to answer was. So in 2016, I was doing PhD at Auckland University. I had almost my first startup focusing on business intelligence software solution, technically making old Excel file look cool for the CEOs that they can go to board and present that, hey, our sales increasing every month. But all of a sudden, I got a disease called mini ear. And because of that, you lose hearing in one ear and you get vertigo attacks. It's personally very challenging to deal with it because I heard from doctor there's a chance of getting other ear effect as well. But it was more annoying when I figured out in our school, we don't have any deaf students doing PhD in electrical engineering. I look at the startup ecosystem, high-tech startup ecosystem, we don't have any deaf co-founders. Why is that? There is no correlation of being smart or being deaf. But what's going on? So I was furious. I went to the Deaf Education Center at Kelston, and I said, what is going on? And they came back to me and said, well, we don't have enough teachers who know sign language. I said, okay, import them. I'm an immigrant. New Zealand need more engineers. So if we bring more engineers, bring more teachers who know sign language, problem solved. Like that. I said, that's not a very smart idea because each country has own sign languages. So if you're from Iran, Sweden, or Lebanon, or anywhere else, and you've been trained to teach deaf kids, you cannot work in New Zealand. I said, okay, that makes sense. There's a new concept called online education. And we have a technology called closed caption. We provide subtitle for everything. Like that. So, no. And I asked why. And I figured out, first of all, deaf kids cannot read. Second thing is, if you're born deaf, even though in New Zealand, English is your second language. You will learn it, because we, as a hearing people, we learn a language by hearing it. But if you're deaf, how would you learn English? So they will grow up later, then learn English, which means the literacy age for deaf communities is lower than hearing one. And we don't know, we always think that, closed caption might be the perfect solution, which is not. then I learned my biggest lesson in my life is knowing the problem is the half of the solution. So on the entrepreneurial mindset, thanks for teaching us a lot of this, is try to understand the mechanic of the problem that you're solving. Always look at the lens of what a problem I'm solving and how can I provide the value. That's the mindset that I really encourage, that I learned from Auckland University, that we need to, all of us need to develop personally. So I said, okay, maybe we start working with Galston Education. You guys know the problem. I'm a tech guy. Let's come up with a solution. And well, how can I help? So I went with this mindset. And they said, well, if you could develop a teacher who can sign, available 24/7, that's a really, really good idea. And we did this. So that's fantastic. So I was so proud. We went to the Deaf Club. We showed this, and we get a huge pushback. They hate it. And I asked, why? And they said, look, this avatar doesn't have a facial expression. Sign language, facial expression is so important that we have our own grammar. So then I was looking at what's going on. So back in old days, because when we started the company in 2017, there are other people in Europe, America doing almost the same thing. That's where they are at when we start the company. That's where they are at now, right? If you look at the pattern, they're all just following the same pattern. Like, look at the facial expression, it's not expressive. And the reason is because we are engineers, we like to wear the headphones, we don't want to talk to customers, we want to develop because we know things, which is a very, very wrong concept. And all the books, for example, have been such as the lean approach always emphasizes the constant engagement with the customer. So we said, okay, let's really solve the problem let's do something really innovative here. And interestingly, fun fact, I haven't checked it, but I know it by heart, is in New Zealand, we have the highest number of avatar company per capita. Can somebody fact check that? But I really believe that. So we have enough resources in New Zealand to do really crazy. And this is what our avatars look like now. His name is Alan. He's doing New Zealand Sign Language at the moment. And when we sent this to the deaf community, people said, so what? Just send a random person to me to sign. I said, it's not a random person, it's a digital human. So there we get all the attentions of, okay, what we can do next. And for example, this is one of the projects that we do. One of my favorite book is called The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Towards the end of the book, spoiler alert, is the part that the caterpillar become a butterfly. So you can see how expressive the sign language is. So we consider sign language as a treasure of New Zealand, that how we can keep recording it. When we were starting the company, we were actually had one of the very good storyteller in New Zealand Sign Language who unfortunately passed away. The people said if we could use our technology, we could have that storytelling element forever, which is so cool. So this is our team vision. So we said, okay, let's see how we can make everything accessible in the sign language. Let's make sign language so accessible that everybody will feel the same. So that's our goal set that we dream to do every day. And we did a couple of other projects. For example, every time government new level in pandemic, with our tech, we can provide immediate access to that, how to give the informed deaf community as well as the hearing community. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. No, keep it.
Oh, okay.
Let's take a couple of questions from the floor.
What's that technology you had there? Is that the New Zealand company Soul?
No, it's not.
Similar.
It is similar. It's very interesting. So when we talking to the customer overseas, it's, oh, we know you're soul machine. I said, no, we're not. Um, no, so what we do is we work with the different companies to provide that. So but usually the core IP is how to drive an avatar in sign language is all made in, like in-house made in, which is I'm so proud of.
So you're using AI in the background to help cross-platform?
Yeah, so the way the technology works, in order to make it as much natural as human, we use a technology called motion capture. So anything I'll do, like a deaf person do, the avatar will follow. We assign a sign into one animation, like hi, you, name, and we have a technology to pull this animation and put them together and render in such a way it doesn't look like Dr. Frankenstein. Is understandably smooth, which means that we can provide translation on the fly. Which is cool.
Do you have a technology like a garment that the deaf person can wear and by like moving their hands they can translate to other people? Like the other way around?
We were thinking about the other way around. Actually, there was a couple of, so when we started the company in 2017, Deaf School shows an article about a company who's doing the gloves. And it's actually developed by an Iranian guy in MIT, which is really cool. But deaf community don't like it. And the reason is because another assumption that we make is, oh, sign language is all about hand. But it's about hand and facial. So I want tea. I don't want tea. Same gesture, totally different meanings. So that the depth knowledge of the customer allows. Recently, there are a couple of companies who are focusing other ways, but they used a full end-to-end motion capture. So they use a camera for facial detection and body movement. But our core IP is from English to sign, and we're focusing on something that we're good at, and we're more than happy to cooperate with the other companies who are doing the other ways. No worries.
And is it only New Zealand Sign Language at this time, or are you looking at other 500 sign languages across the world?
Yeah, that we are doing, actually we just get a full American Sign Language expert today. So we are covering NZSL, ASL, BSL, British Sign Language, Auslan. Our plan is we come with a platform which could give it to different deaf communities so they can develop it themselves. So how we can even scale a solution, because practically you cannot do it by yourself, but how you can wrap it and give it to the other people so they can come and then contribute. Yeah. Cool, thank you.
I think let's save the more questions for the break.
Yeah. I just want to say, will your next company focus on artificial knees?
I think I'll do that. The knees are really terrible.
Keep running into these problems. Can we put our hands together for Arash? Thank you so much. That's amazing. Thank you. Too many hands. Awesome. And another massive round of applause for all three of our speakers. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah. We're going to take a 10-minute comfort break now. And my challenge to you is I would like you to meet at least 2 other people tonight that you haven't met yet. And I want you to share your biggest takeaway. What was your favorite thing that you learnt so far? And perhaps even something that you might follow up on. Something that you heard tonight that you think, actually, I'm going to go and find out a little bit more about that because it's got me going. All right, so you've got your 2 things, right? Something you learnt, something you're going to follow up on, and you're going to meet at least 2 other people and have a conversation about that. Okay? So rise up, grab a drink, grab a bite to eat. There's still some left in the back there, and encourage you to just, make it work. And we'll reconvene at, what time is it now? 10 past. We'll reconvene at 20 past. Thank you, team. Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for having us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you could charge your glasses, grab a bite to eat. We'll be starting in about 3 minutes.
Funny old place.
All right, ladies and gents, that's your 60-second warning. Come grab a seat, and we're going to start again. All right, ladies and gents, I'm going to invite our speakers up to the front and arm yourselves with a microphone. Thanks, folks. Come and grab a seat. We're starting. Come on. You can do it. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Clap 3 times if you can hear me. Clap 4 times if you can hear me. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Come on, Masood. Let's start herding everyone back. Thank you, team.
I'll just get the closer.
Exciting. Thanks, Rob. You with me?
Yeah.
There we go. Just after the photographer told us to put in a straight line, I was like, we've got to do a campfire thing here, man. Got the campfire burning. Kia ora, thank you, everyone. Welcome back. So this is the part B of tonight's Tech Talk. We've heard from each of our amazing speakers individually, get our thought process going. And now what we're going to do, part B, is just around panel. So I'm going to kick us off with a couple of questions. Maybe we'll do an introduction round just for a second, or a first question. And then what I'd like to do is really encourage you as the audience to pose questions. So start to think about the kind of things that you'd like to hear discussed. It makes it really fascinating, and it takes the conversation into places that we might never have got to if you didn't. So just encourage you to think about that, questions and comments. And to our online audience as well, Daniel is on side over here watching the chat, so please feel free to put comments and feedback in, and we will be taking a question or two from your end of the world as well, wherever you are. So yeah, this is it. So before we kick into our panel, how are we doing tonight? How are you finding it?
Very good.
Yes?
Very interesting.
Yeah. Hands up who met 2 new people. Job done. Look at that. Amazing. Hands up who learned something. Yeah. And you're going to go off and try something? Yes. Thank you. Now I'm getting you all practicing your hands up, hands out. Glad that works. Cool. All right. Well, look, our theme tonight is education and the startup mindset. And my first question to the panel is, why is this topic so important and why now? Is that a curly one? Yeah, why is this so important and why now? Let's always start with why.
Yeah. Am I going first?
Yeah.
You are now.
The reason is why now is I look at the point of view because I'm an immigrant, so I come from Iran, so I see a different behavior of the importance of a central government can play, how that can play an important role of innovation or not innovation. So what I really feel that is the entrepreneurial thing is, the reason is because each person who deals with experience can bring something on the table. And I do believe that, for example, in my case, that if more deaf people start working on the solutions in the technology, that could be solved. And one of the great way is to doing is through the entrepreneurship. And again, entrepreneurship is not just having a startup. So when you work in an organization, think about it, how to be innovative and how to understand the problem and how to solve the problem and tackle the problem. And I think entrepreneurship is most efficient way to do it, because sometimes you don't need to politically be correct. Sometimes you don't need to do it for the short-term reward that sometimes the government does. But entrepreneurs always think about, okay, this is a problem, I need to solve it. And why now? It's because now entrepreneurship has become more accessible. The technology is more accessible. For example, if you want to use motion capture technology, like 4 years ago, only the top studios in Hollywood have the access. Now we have it in our office. Means, and also information are more accessible. I want to learn how to code to become a better leader. I can jump in. I don't need to come to Auckland University is great. But beside that, there are more efficient way to do it. So accessing to the information is easier. And I want to have a customer in London. I can do a Zoom call. So I don't need to travel. So everything has become more accessible. So I think that's why.
Awesome, great answer, and thanks for starting us off. It gave the other two a chance to think about an answer. So startup mindset, education startup mindset. Why is that important and why now?
I mean, I talked about this a little bit at the start of my presentation when you think about the challenges in the world. And so I think I'll probably just go a little bit deeper around that, because if you think about issues such as climate change, for example, so everyone understands the problems, but what we're not very good at is actually coming up with really good solutions to solve the problems. And in order to do that, if you think about the traits of the entrepreneurial mindset, it would really help if we actually started addressing these from a perspective about how can we actually solve these problems. And there's a lot of great scientists that happens around that area, for example, but there's a whole lot of social change that needs to happen. There's a whole lot of work that really has to happen to essentially save our planet. The other thing, when you think about the fourth industrial revolution, and this is, with my mum hat on, when you hear things like 65% of children will have jobs that aren't even invented yet in the next 20 years, and that people will have 17 career changes across 5 different industries, people aren't going to be able to deal with that type of ambiguity and constant change unless, one, they've got more of a growth mindset around continual learning, but there's also something about having to need to be entrepreneurial, because employment isn't necessarily going to look the same. And so we know things like the gig economy aren't necessarily healthy for society, but people are probably going to need to be self-employed, unemployed, continually learning in and out of jobs as the future does come. And I think having entrepreneurs who people with entrepreneurial mindset who can deal with that ambiguity is needed. And we're even seeing some issues in the country now, right, with some sectors just being completely decimated and they don't have jobs to go to. And so how do you actually help these people either create jobs for themselves or go into different types of employment? And then the other thing is you need entrepreneurs who are going to create new jobs. And that's why I think it's needed now, because we've got big challenges.
Do I have to answer it now?
Oh, yes, you do.
I think I'll just reiterate what they've both said, is that it's probably easier now than ever. The access to technology, the access to funding, the ability to, develop something now is easier than it was 5-10 years ago. And hopefully tonight what I was talking about, and you got a little sense of, is it's not just the development of the product or the service that you're developing, it's the entrepreneurial mindset, because you have to think about all the other things that you're going to have to solve in terms of getting your product or your service to market that's going to solve a problem. And so I think that's
Awesome. Thank you, team. Can we give them a quick round of applause and encouragement? Thank you. Next question, before I get to that, is what I heard in there is really humanity is facing the grand challenges. There's a broad narrative around that. There are changes that are rushing up on us in unprecedented ways. And what I really liked underneath that layer was this idea that you could foster entrepreneurship as a life skill. And if we promoted that, I guess, across the general population, you end up with a general population that's more resilient and more adaptable. And so as these changes keep rolling on, which they don't look like they're slowing down, we have a population or a community that's better able to stand up into that and become more adapted and thrive. I guess that's the promise in it. We're hearing a lot about the startup mindset, and Darsel, you flashed a slide that showed a bunch of different elements, and I frantically tried to read as fast as I could. But I wondered if you could share, perhaps the panel could share your working definition of what you mean by a startup mindset. How do you know it when you see it? What's the type of thinking that or behavior that would be associated with it? What do you try to foster? So startup mindset, what does it mean to you? How would you describe it to somebody?
I think for me it's what's the problem you're trying to solve, and then figuring out how you're going to solve it, and then, as I mentioned, test, change, test, change, test, and you've probably gone through that quite a bit, right? And you heard it, like just thought it was going to work this way, it doesn't work that way, you had to change it, and I think that's the mindset, that you've got to recognise that what the first problem you tried to solve when you set out might not be the actual problem that you end up solving. It could change along the way, and so as an entrepreneur, you've got to recognise that things are going to change on me. There's going to be things that are going to come along that it's going to affect it, but I need to adapt and change as I go along. Test it with my market or my customer, and reinvest, relook at what I'm trying to do to make sure that I get it right.
Nice.
I've probably got a slight advantage here because I have spent the past year analysing 1,400 papers and how they define and construct an entrepreneurial mindset. But, that's the fun things you do as a PhD student. But essentially, if you look at the research in the literature, it is the things I put up on the slide. So it's the problem solving, the spotting the opportunity, the dealing with the ambiguity, the taking risks, the marshalling of resources. People don't have access to resources when they're in their entrepreneurial environment, leadership, communication, building teams. And I think most importantly is the taking action on the problem. Would be, what you see in the literature, but I think also what you see from people like Arash and the work that he's actually doing as an entrepreneur.
Cool. So I think I just want to add one thing is entrepreneurial mindset to me is just rolling up your sleeve and do it. And because once you do it, you will automatically surrounded by people who you can inspire. And once you have the people see you're doing it, then the investors are, this guy is crazy enough and he's doing it. And that everything will happen automatically. Because when we want to do something, sometimes we find 1,000 reasons not doing it. But there was sometimes one reason, and that reason could be validated through a process. And if you could validate the one reason that you could really validate, like I talked to 50 people and they all have this problem. And if that one reason and you start acting on it, then you can become an entrepreneur. It's just about doing it. For example, if the global changing, like climate changing is coming, and instead of just doing nothing, I want to do something, then you automatically become entrepreneur. And that's the core concept of actually rolling up your sleeve and do it.
Full contact.
For everything. Just be careful of your knee.
Just be careful of the knee, thank you. You heard it here, folks. I'm going to do a call out to our online audience, and I wondered if there were any questions, Daniel.
One comment and one question. The comment is for Arash. Focus primarily on the primary and intermediate school levels, please.
Okay.
Sure.
You've been instructed.
And the question is, you usually need a team of people to make something, and you definitely mentioned that. One big problem for startups is that it takes a lot of time to find the right people, and then it's hard to retain them because they get poached by people who are more established and they have more money and resources. How do you retain staff, and how do you cope with that, losing the staff thing?
The staff retention problem. I'm just going to replay that a little bit.
It's not just a problem in startups.
It's a
sector-wide, countrywide issue at the moment. I think the best. Well, some of the examples I've seen is equity shares. So if there's you're starting a company and you're issuing shares, then the person that's doing the work can get a shareholding in it. And some of the companies that I've looked at, that's definitely a route to hold on to staff.
Yeah, sort of options.
I'd agree with that. Retention is really hard at the moment, and I think is going to get harder because we've got a whole lot of 20-year-olds who have been trapped from in the country and not been able to do the overseas experience. And on the flip side, we have immigration settings that are making it impossible to get talent into the country. And then you've got countries like Australia and states like New South Wales who are essentially giving tech companies money to employ people, and so the pipeline, why would you come to New Zealand when you can get $40,000 extra and live in Sydney, which is also a really nice place to live? And so I actually think there's a role for government to really actually prop up the tech and creative sector at the moment and invest in it. And I was at an event, I've been at several events, and recently tech companies have actually been crying out to the government to please let people into the country because they can't get talent. And part of the issue too is because our borders have been shut, we haven't been able to bring Arash-like people into the country because our PhD students, international ones, have traditionally been a really great pipeline of employees, but also of deep tech startups, and so it's a problem for the ecosystem at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the tech sector, pre-COVID, it was probably creating around 3,000 jobs per year.
Gosh.
So you close the borders for 2 years, you've got 6,000 jobs that have
Yeah,
been
it's a
filled.
backlog,
And everybody's competing for it. So.
And they're competing with each other.
Oh yeah, salaries in the salaries in the tech sector have probably jumped by
Is enough being
20%.
done to foster the talent, though? Because it's kind of this interesting thing. We're crying out for more talent, but what are we doing with the talent we've got? Are we farming enough? You know, there's a lot of sort of hunter-gatherer with talent, and not enough farming.
Don't want to get sidetracked, but there are a number of community places now, particularly for Māori and Pacifica, that are trying to get people retrained into the tech sector particularly. But, you know, that's challenging in itself because of various socio-economic situations. So.
And cultural issues.
And cultural issues, yeah.
I mean, the tech sector traditionally hasn't been that friendly to, I'm going to say equity groups, but, you know, Māori, Pacific and women in particular have had a hard time in tech companies. And it's one of the things we're trying to understand, because in our pipeline we have pretty well split gender equality, and we mirror the University around Māori and Pacific, which, you know, isn't good enough in terms of mirroring the country. But we don't get a lot of the deep tech, so New Zealand's got a STEM issue. So when you think about the pipeline, what are we doing to keep young women interested in science and maths? Because if they're getting to university and they're not doing engineering, then you're not going to get them into the tech sector. And then I think we've got an issue once they get out into the workplace, that they get in these environments and they just go, this isn't for me. And so I think there's a primary school, high school issue we need to solve around STEM education, and then there's a industry issue. However, I think COVID's actually helped address that, to be honest, because the work from home and flexible and the dearth of talent has been people have had to learn to treat humans as humans and recognise that they have families and a life out of work. So,
Arash, what's it been like for you on the talent front with your startup?
We can look at the problem in 2 points of view. I'm not sure the question is about just gathering talent or finding the co-founder, which is totally different stories. So I'll just very briefly touch base on the founders is, based on what you mentioned, like we have talent in New Zealand. Yes, we do, but we need to be more welcoming to the people from overseas coming and inspire the current people. Because just university is not enough. And we need the people's breakthroughs. We need to welcome people to come in and have the establishment in New Zealand. So that I will look at the role model and say, okay, so I want to be that, because we are losing more talent than gathering the talent, which is a very sad story if you look at the New Zealand. Just put it as a side. The other thing I just want to briefly talk about how to find the co-founders. When we start Kara, so it was me and 3 other co-founders, and we're super happy. When we start the job, like 2 of them left straight away. And the reason is because we always think about, the passion is very important. But I really welcome everybody to talk about negative and having this very hard discussion from day one and set up the expectation. Because co-founder clash is number 4 reason of the startup failure. You might have a great idea, you might have enough funding, but somebody leave the company. Your CTO is leaving the company. What would you do? There are some mechanism in place, as Robert mentioned, regarding to equity and vesting to force them to stay. But nothing is more important than set up expectation. Like you're coming to the company and you will do this and you will give rewarded like this and make it super clear. But when we start the company, we are super happy. So, you have a company, you want to start working with me? Yeah, I like it. Oh, I like your idea. Then we talk about, my mindset is, okay, we are working same time, so half. So we tend to not discuss about these issues. When the time is coming, everybody like, what? When the investment comes, for example, hey, this project is full time. So when we get the investment, it's like, okay, now we have to quit the job. I was like, should I quit the job? I didn't know that. So set up expectation from day one. Have this uncomfortable conversation from day one is very crucial. So that will help the co-founder to stick together. So
I'd add to that to suggest that you have the expectations conversation frequently. Don't wait until it's all built up inside, and then it's a big explosion later on. address the tensions as they build. So set something up quarterly, or 6 monthly, something like that. Super helpful. David?
Reflecting back almost on everything that all of you said, and can I say my takeaway was you had the mechanics, you had the academia flavour, but you had the juice. That's how I saw it. I don't know about anybody else. But,
Thank you for the feedback.
But in reflection, do you think though that if you've got the business plan that's sorted as you mentioned, and then as part of that business plan, your goals are set, and as part of those goals, everybody's role is created from the business plan? Because you've got this great idea, I want to help people, all right? What way? Well, my bent is deaf, and my bent is blindness. Okay, cool. So let's now put this in paper, cement it, and we will call it a name, but don't give it a name yet till we're all together and committed on board. Now, if one of us wants to exit, it will cost you. And it will cost you dearly because you will miss out on $1 billion idea. And if you've got that concept, that passion and understanding, once they're out, you have to commit and say, I'm sorry, but we've got it in words here. If you leave, you're out. When somebody else comes in, they will get the rewards. Do you want to do that? That's my, I know, Pollyanna way of putting it, but I notice often people do stick together, and the real people do not only stick together, but they become the billionaires. We know who they are, and there's about a dozen in the world that are multi-billionaires. So, you know, I think your concept is great. There's no question about it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the floor? I think we'll take one more and then start to move into wrap-up mode.
We talked about the entrepreneur mindset. So, and somebody from online as well, they talked about how do we build it early on rather than doing it at the university level. You see, I think it's too late. So how do we change the mindset of the parents as well so that they can also engage their children? I'm keen on listening ideas from you on that, if that you think would change the dynamics a bit.
I think it's up to the entrepreneur themselves. It's up to the individual who puts it together from the beginning. If you've got that passion, everybody will see your dream.
Yeah, but you still need to create the sparks.
Yeah, I think culturally in New Zealand we've got a lot to do around really as a nation having an entrepreneurial culture. We like to say we are, but actually we're a nation of SMEs, and we don't actually celebrate business and entrepreneurial success necessarily. And actually we just published an article around tall poppy syndrome and its impact on entrepreneurs on our newsroom, if anyone's interested in reading it, because it's really fascinating. Like, we actually have a cultural problem around this. And I think linked to that is parents. Well, I mean, some of it's history, right? So the New Zealand's ecosystem is only really about 2.5 decades long. So as we start getting more, Rod Juries and Wharenga Rickies and Vaughan Rosewells and more role models coming through, then I think naturally you'll start to see more bubbling away of people who aspire to do it, and parents realising that it is a pathway. However, the flip side of that, and if you look at some data that comes out of the States, quite often, people talk about the Stanfords and the Harvards and the MITs, but what they forget to mention about all those entrepreneurs is these people have quite often huge financial resources behind them, right? So they can take massive risks because they know if they take massive risks that they can still eat and will still have a home. And so we've got to accept that doing startups is risky, and it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone at certain times of their life as well. So I think there is a cultural issue, but we also shouldn't be encouraging everyone to take this path because it's not necessarily the most appropriate.
Essentially gambling.
Yeah, it is gambling. Yeah, totally. And so I think, that's where the risk assessment is really, really important, because you can do this, but you've got to know, what you're betting and when. So, for example, I would not bet my home because then my children would not have somewhere to sleep, you know, and I'm not really that keen to move in.
Well,
I
my
love
job,
my
right?
parents. Yeah. Yeah, you know, so I think different times, but...
Got to calculate the risk. Jesse, did you have a question? I think I saw your hand go.
Yeah, it was exactly what you touched on. It was just looking at what New Zealand's culture is like in regards to the entrepreneurial mindset and really, you know, what or how could we foster that or what are we doing? But you pretty much touched on that already.
I think the SME mindset reigns supreme, and I've often heard it, you know, the beamer, the batch and the boat, you know, like once you've got those things in New Zealand, you're sort of set. Now, I'm not suggesting that, you know, we want to create hundreds of billionaires in New Zealand. That'd be ideal, and but, you know, to deal with some of the socio-economical issues that we have, we definitely need people to think different. And I think you're right, with the examples that are coming through, there's definitely going to be a change of mindset around it.
Awesome. Did you want to add anything else, Arash?
I just want to add something that statistically, if you, like 10 of us, 9 out of 10 of us will fail.
Yep.
And that's why you need the 10x from the investors, because it's a mathematical problem. So you're going to fail. There's a high chance of failure. And in terms of parents believing you, they're never going to believe you. Because my parents are still like, what are you doing again?
What the hell are you doing?
Did you want to get a real job? And just put it aside, like even successful people, like, for example, Elon Musk, that everybody like, oh, he's the god of the entrepreneurship. Like Tesla stock was in one of the shorts in the history of, because how many people not believe in him? Still, you're Elon Musk and people not believing you. And one of the things that as an entrepreneur, you need to develop mindset is resilient. And for example, and being a little bit of flavor of being crazy. When we start the company, for example, I was talking to Darsel, like we start a company and we said, okay, cool, we got the investment, we got the team, and we figured I can't stay in New Zealand because New Zealand law does not enable an entrepreneur to stay as international students.
Wow.
And that is the darkest part of New Zealand. And we will say, oh yeah, we have like 90% of PhD students are international, and PhD students are in the technology, the high tech is. If you look at the Stanford model, for example, or MIT model, like you don't need like they're graduating so many students, and you don't need university professors like that much. But look at the number of startups growing because these people come out of the university, they just bam, go have the startups. It's a very proven model. But in New Zealand, is a dead end.
Yeah. The system isn't joined up just yet.
Not at all. And the government invests and put the subsidy to international students to come in here, and when it's graduated, no, you can't stay.
Yeah, the highway isn't built that far. Sorry, it just runs straight. And
So technically, as an immigrant, you have to steal the job rather than build job in this country, which is a very sad fact. And that immigration is just number one. Then we can, for example, I didn't have wealthy parents, so how to bring the investor on board when you have a really vision, and there are some chance of failure. But I personally think it's worth it because the experience I went through it was very different. So sense of resilience is very important. And the only way you bring your parents or your friends believe in you by actually doing it. And it's very important to just keep doing it. And sometimes you have to feel that you're alone, but it is what it is.
Wasn't it a guy, or a team from Auckland Uni that came up with the idea of the Q wireless power?
Powered by proxy, yeah.
The University of Auckland's world-leading specialist in inductive power technology, and it's been applied in a whole lot of different.
And hence why, of course, I think Samsung, a couple of phone companies went, really? And then Samsung, well, look, let's ride with it. I believe, I don't know.
No, so Purdy started.
I remember seeing a presentation about 3 years ago.
Yeah, so they, Purdy and Canal worked on that in their fourth year engineering project in about 2002 here. In 2003, it went through Velocity, which was then Spark, and then 2016 they had a massive exit to Apple, but they were applying it in industrial environments for a long time. They were applying it into windmills, and then they'd always hoped that it would be something like charging pads, which essentially is where it's ended at. But of course the iPhone only launched in 2007, so there was like a big lead, and then there is with most of those tech plays. It's an amazing story.
Right,
yeah.
Amazing story, yeah.
Ask anybody that's got a decent phone, you know.
Yeah, incredible story.
Arash mentioned about immigration. Another problem we have is how education system evaluate performance of the institutions. So at the institution, I'm an educator myself, so NZQA and Ministry of Education, they check our performance based on how many students after graduation got job. So they are not looking, we don't have any KPI for the entrepreneurship. And
so
this is the numbers we need to report, and based on that we will get funding for the next year. So same as the immigration issue and this issue.
So it's not set up to foster.
Is how we can communicate with the decision makers to have some changes, because it's, as Arash mentioned, it's super obvious that we need some changes. And so just change the culture, we need some good rules and some government support as well.
We're looking into the international PhD issue because it is a real issue for us here at the University of Auckland. I'm not aware of the other issue, but I think we might just stick with them one at a time.
Chris Hipkins is immigration and education now, isn't he? I think. Yeah, there you go. Send him a letter.
Yeah, 2 degrees of separation.
No. Yeah.
We'll go find him at the next barbecue.
Yeah, tell him he's linked to portfolios.
Sure, connect them up.
Larry, I think the problem is a lot of industries are making their voices heard to the government. You know, nurses, doctors, teachers, IT here, there. But how those decisions will be made is a big thing. And it's really painful to watch all those people that Arash mentioned and Wayne mentioned who have the talent, who want to be an entrepreneur. Either they can't get a visa and they have to go for greener pastures. Why wouldn't you? Australia, the US. And the other one is a lot of the time the big businesses want to retain some staff. Some universities want to retain some of their graduates, but because of visa issues, a lot of the time they're like, well, maybe let's
It's an issue, eh?
I just add one thing to your point is, I think it's a chicken and egg problem, right? We need examples to show the government to make a move. I remember when we, the first night here is, I think it's been glowed by Jacinda, and she was with us, said, okay, if we predict that in next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, 25% of the jobs in New Zealand is going to be through entrepreneurship. I was that much closer to raise my hand, but you're not helping because the reason is, again, usually all of humans, we make a decision based on example. Look at the little Jack, did this, that's fantastic, great. But the problem is, we need people to be more bold what they're doing. For example, this TED Talk that you're having is a great example. So you can bring more people, so we can have this, put some spotlight of those examples. So make awareness of how they can help the economy. Because usually the rule of thumb is more people coming to country means that less job. That is not true. So we need to look at it more deeply and see how we can create more jobs, bring in more people in, and go from there.
Well, folks, I think that's probably all we've got time for tonight. I'm sorry, Yeshua. As a kind of wrap-up round, what's your main reflection? You've heard the discussions tonight from each other and from our people. What's your main takeaway tonight?
I'll start. I really like Robert mentioned about the valuation. For me was really insightful because I think we are in a valuation crisis at the moment, and because we are in a bubble and the bubble just shows up, it's not working. Especially for us raising money, it's very difficult because we put crazy valuation and look at and shedding some light from the big guy's point of view to how to make the evaluation of the startup was really. But thanks for sharing it.
That middle ground, eh?
Yeah, I think as I said before, it's not just the creation of the product or the problem you're trying to solve. There's a whole lot of other things that you need to do.
Yeah.
When you're an entrepreneur or a startup.
It really does take a village.
I guess my most takeaway is the last discussion we're having around the PhD international immigration issue, because it just keeps flaring up for us, and we actually had a meeting today when we're like, we need to start looking at this, but we really need to start looking at it because it is an issue for the country from multiple perspectives.
Kia ora.
More than happy to help you.
That's what TechTALK's all about, man.
Well, I've got more than one example, but yeah.
Folks, can you put your hands together for our amazing panel tonight? Thank you so much. That's really great. Thank you so much. You're welcome to grab a seat now. We're going to move into wrap-up mode. While they're doing that, can I ask you all to rise up and grab someone you haven't spoken to and share your biggest takeaway tonight? You have 1 minute. We'll do the thank yous in a second now. Okay. Sweet. And that'll be in our wrap-up mode. Excellent. All right. Thanks, folks. We'll bring it back in again. Give it another 30 seconds or so, so just wrap up that part of the conversation. Awesome. Thanks, mate. All right.
We should get like a big distributor.
We should. We should. Okay, folks, let's bring it back in again. We're just going to wrap up very quickly. So if you pause your conversation there. Awesome. Thank you, team. Let's bring it back in again. Thanks, Yeshua. Thank you, team. We're just going to bring it back in. We're just going to wrap up quickly. We're nearly there, folks. We've got a group photo to do, so stick around for that. All right. So can we just give a round of applause to Indy? He's my son, and he's been handing around. Yeah, that's it. That's another way to quieten the room. Thank you. So Indy's been waving around a form here. If you grab your smartphone and put your camera on this little doohickey here, your QR code, there's a little short survey to fill in. As always, we're very keen for feedback and suggestions on things that would make TechTALK better. If you enjoyed tonight, so please share liberally if you can. Yeah, and look, if you've got a story that you'd like to share, while you're doing that, if you wouldn't mind doing, you can do the survey now if you like. I invite you. And while you've got that going on, we'll just give you a second. Yeah, if you've got a story inside you, if you've got something, a perspective that you'd like to share, come and be one of our speakers. Please reach out to the organising team. We're always keen to hear from you. As you can see, what we really love is to create a bit of a stage and a safe space for people that are real practitioners to come out and share their story. So as an audience member, I always find it's a massive privilege hearing from people. They aren't often accomplished public speakers, and it's not about the edutainment. It's also about, actually, these are real issues that are being met by real people. So it's great to be able to hear from the frontline leaders and community builders at events like ours. So if you've got a story inside you that you'd love to share and be part of the conversation, please come forward.
And if I could for a sec share a story about Rob as well, a little bit one, which I was talking to him about, because he mentioned that caring for people. Rob and I were in the same team and we worked over the weekend, and like on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we were on sort of 24-hour shifts. And then after we left on maybe early Monday morning, Rob said, hey, don't come to the office for next 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And then next week I get a voucher for the breakfast on Sky Tower for the family.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's what this guy does.
Hey, he's sneaky.
And
Look at him.
I
He's
couldn't
like
stop
he's
myself
hoping.
from sharing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Blush,
Yeah.
blush.
Well, I think we need to hear more stories like that, acts of kindness. And they're a little bit like smiles and hugs. The more you give, the more you get. And it's nice being in a community where there's lots of little acts of kindness that move around. So good on you for setting the tone and role modeling that. And thank you for sharing that. I'm going to shift to the sort of thank yous now. So thank you so much for getting that survey up and running. I didn't expect it to take as long as it did. How many questions did you put on there? It was like 4. As you're putting your life story in. Yeah, look, heaps of people to say thank you to. This is our 22nd event, and every time we're building the conversation. And it's just such a privilege to be able to hold space and host you all. So thank you so much to all of you who've come out tonight. So that'll be the first round of applause while you're clapping. All the cookies. The second one is to our amazing speakers. Thank you so much for taking the time and and sharing the stories. Thank you. Namihi nui. Can I get an arm wave from our volunteers? There's a cast of characters that are behind the scenes. Thank you. We've got Ben, we've got Daniel, we've got Masood. Huge round of applause to these guys. They make the magic happen. They've pulled together what I think is a pretty professional event. And they've done it on a real a lean budget, which I'm going to get to next. But yeah, we get hosted by these amazing volunteers. And yeah, so it's been such a pleasure to work with them. And of course, our hosts tonight, Darsel, thank you so much for hosting us at like the most perfect venue for a Tech Talk, the Startup Studio. Can we have a round of applause for the University of Auckland as well? Thanks. Thank you. So this is my spiel as well. Look, it's a bit of a plug. As you know, our event would not be possible without the support of sponsors and partners. We, as in Masood, myself, the volunteers, and I hope we're speaking on behalf of you guys, are immensely grateful for the sponsorship and the support that's been given so far to bring Tech Talk to where it is right now. 22 events is not a trivial thing. It's paid for the hosting, it's paid for food and catering, it's allowed us the opportunity to hang out in person, videography, sharing the talks outside the room, trying to build a conversation bigger than what's happening right here. So just a massive round of gratitude and paki for all of the volunteers and the people, the army, the movement that's actually brought us to where we are now. Thank you. So my next question is, who thinks that these events are important and they're valuable? Yeah? Got the hands up, thumbs up, clapping hands. Well, I'm going to ask for a little bit of support on behalf of Masood and the team. We are on the hunt for supporters, as in sponsors, actually, because sometimes this stuff isn't free, and I'll share a little secret. Somebody's actually going to be paying for this out of their own pocket tonight, and I don't know if that's, this is a community service, so I don't know if that's really right. So that's something I'm going to put out there. You've come along, and there's a lot of familiar faces here that are just real long-run supporters. So we want to put the feelers out into our network. We're hunting for partners, sponsors, people that would value having their brand associated with a conversation like this. This is about meeting that talent shortage. We're trying to help close the STEAM skills shortage gap. And so that's not a trivial challenge. And events like this bring these perspectives together, which I don't think happens frequently enough. So if you think that's important and you know of somebody that might be an influencer or somebody that can bring a bit of love and support to an event like this, to a kaupapa like this, please let us know. I know that Masood's been trying his level best to get out there. This is not his native country. It's not mine either. We're both passionate about bringing this about, and it's such a privilege to have everyone together, but it's not sustainable in its current form. So we are looking at ways of evolving that. But yeah, we're just putting a huge shout out there. Is this okay? So that's my ask really tonight, is that, you know, if you are somebody who thinks that you can see a way to support it, that is fantastic. But if you know of someone, that's the kind of thing we want to do, is just have more conversations to just test out the assumptions. What would make it make sense for that brand or that venture to support? Okay, so I think it's early stage. We're not, you know, this is not skipping to the third date. This is kind of first base conversations. Like, hey, you know, just want to flirt a little bit, get to know people, and kind of see who's out there that might make sense to find a partner or a couple of partners. Eh?
You are consulting with us.
Consulting, yes, that is it. Thank you, sir. So that was my only ask, really, apart from the socials, which is here. So share the conversation. That's where we're at. Lots of the, all the channels, actually, by the look of things, except for maybe Discord. Indy, we'll have a chat about that. And our next event is the 29th of September. Please put a placeholder in the calendar. And the theme is micro-credentials, challenges and opportunities. How cool is that? That's really cool, yeah. So that's like a good follow-on from education and startup mindset, hey? That's great. And now, ladies and gents, that's it. That's Tech Talk 22. If you wouldn't mind joining me up in the front here, and we'll take instructions from our photographer over there. Actually, sorry, one last thing before we do that. So sorry, I forgot about this. Masood and I would like to bring our speakers up to just say a heartfelt thank you for coming along tonight. And we've prepared a gift for you all. So please come on up. Rob, Darsel, thank you so much. Yeah. I'll hand it to you. You hand it to them. Yes. Do you guys want a big group photo? Yes, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darsel.
Thank you, Rob. There you go. And thank you.
Thank you, folks. Can you give them a round of applause again? Thank you so much, team. That'll stall for time for the photography. COVID. We've got to catch COVID. Thank you, Sam. Awesome. Thanks, team. We're going to have everyone up now for a big group photo, and then that's us. 29th of September. There we go. Yes.
Dad,
Come on, team.
that's so funny. You said the 26th.
Did I?
You said the 26th test talk
the
a while
Monday.
ago.
Test talk. Did I say test talk? I shouldn't have said that.
26th tech talk instead of 22nd.
Ah, dang it. Okay, you got me. I was testing you.
Oh, I was listening.
You passed.
I was